Welcome back to Time to Change. I'm Chasen Forehand, and to my right on the screen, maybe your left, I don't know. It's Kate McKinnon is in the house. Give it. Goodness gracious. This lady has spent over a decade in executive level HR. She is the chief people officer for Kate McKinnon HR Solutions. She is in the Outlier Project. She's one of my Outlier sisters. And I can't wait to dive in and tell you her story and have her talk a little bit about all the things. So, the first thing, this we talked a little bit about this when you and I had a conversation prior to getting on the show, but you actually originally were going to be a criminal profiler. You really love the behavioral science field, and we nerded out for a little bit because that I had like all of these behavioral psychology classes when I first started in college. So I love that. Tell me more. Tell me more about that, and talk about like your beginnings and how you kind of fell into HR.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and see a fellow outlier. Uh,
Yay!
Yay. So I grew up in the time of Silence of the Lambs being like the movie, and I wanted to be Clarice, which is very odd. My parents were like, "What? What are we doing here?" But I was so fascinated with the way that she went about developing a rapport and really digging into the psychology of her subject. And so I went on to study psychology, criminal justice, and sociology during my undergrad. I did an internship at the Lehigh County Prison in Pennsylvania, working with offenders. And then when I got out of school, I worked with juvenile offenders for 5 years and loved it. I genuinely thought it was fascinating. I felt like I was making a huge impact, and ultimately discovered that it probably wasn't the place that I was going to spend my entire career. Unfortunately, the system's a little challenging, and it's hard work. I give a lot of credit to people that have stayed in the field for longer than 5 years. 5 years is kind of an eternity in that type of environment, but really loved it. And I think it really set the stage for the rest of my career in the sense that the psychology of people, the psychology of behavior, what motivates and drives people, how people work in teams and collaborate with one another really just became, a passion of mine and at the heart of every role I've had since. So moved from that industry into sales, which is a very odd transition. But my father had been in sales forever. And he said, "Can you please consider doing something other than what you're doing?"
Yeah.
And so I followed in his footsteps. And that sort of got me out of that environment and into more of a sort of, I would say, professional corporate type environment, where I saw that there were a lot of needs that I thought I could help solve for. So that was the start.
Well, I love that. We talked about this before the show when we met one on one. I I had placed out I had placed out of a bunch of the core curriculum classes, and they're asking me basically, what type of underwater basket weaving class I would love to take, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. If it's not going to challenge me, I don't even want to be bothered with this. But when
Yeah.
I started asking about behavioral psychology, and they're telling me that these are classes that people that are taking this field, I'm like, I don't care. They're fascinating. So I love that you were fascinated by it because I'm right with you.
Yeah,
I think that it applies to every field. Th-
it does.
that art of understanding people and why they do the things they do,
Mhm.
I think is huge.
It is. Yeah.
So I mad respect for spending some time. Um, anything that's just as social service oriented, and I think we had this conversation too that people should have to do and or either be in the service industry for 2 years be in the military for 2 years, or maybe a combination of the two, because
Yes.
it's like um, you learn so much about people, how to
Mhm.
treat people, what other people, how they look at you being in the service industry. It's just
Yeah.
crazy.
It's so
Uh,
true. My mother had a rule that we needed to work in the restaurant industry and we had to work in retail stores at some point. And so those early responsibilities and roles really shaped how I view everybody in the world.
yeah, it's just a phenomenal way to start out. Now, I've spent 45 years in that industry, but it is, yeah, I will never forget all the different places along the way. So, human resources.
Mhm.
You this obviously you had gathered a lot of information from all the things that you had done. You have studied all the different ways that people think and are able to take all of that knowledge. When did the human resources side and when did that start like coming in?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. So, when I was in sales, I was again very fascinated with the behavior of really talented sellers who were being promoted into leadership roles and were not successful.
Mm,
Or and would, collapse a team, or they would have a lot of personnel problems, and they would end up leaving the organization. And I remember thinking, very early on in my sales career, how is it that people don't see that these are two completely different skill sets? That selling is very individual and very, you're driving towards a goal, but you're focused on yourself. Whereas leading a sales team is really getting work done through your team. And so I ended up making the decision. I was looking at MBA programs, but I ended up making a decision to study for my Master of Leadership Development from Penn State. It felt a lot more aligned with the things that I was passionate about. And I was very disappointed to find that all of the career paths that I researched, all the things that really, I was interested in, were in HR. And I had never had a good experience with anybody in the HR world. So I was like really grappling with the fact that like I don't want to be an HR person. And no knock to HR professionals. I mean, I think we're very, very underestimated humans, but at the time, I thought, my gosh, I don't want to be sitting behind a desk telling people what they can and can't do. And I had made the transition out of sales, and now I was running some recruiting type responsibilities. And I was at Villanova taking a course where I saw the head of a human resources department talking about HR in the way that I thought that it should always be practiced, which is very servant leadership driven, very employee focused, and why that actually is also good for business. It's good for the people, but it's good for the business, right?
yes.
And I was fascinated, and I went down after he finished his lecture essentially, and I said, I want to work for you. I don't care where I have to go. I just want to learn this. This is so interesting to me. And so fast forward a few months, I ended up relocating, and I took a job where I was managing the learning and development for North American and Canadian operations for a large car rental company. So I was doing that there, and that was really my entrance into HR. So I would say it was a soft entrance in the
Yeah.
learning and development side, but my career just grew following that. So then moved into the healthcare space, and then following that moved into the sports landscape, and then started my own business. So really became very, very excited about the idea of really building and scaling HR teams, helping to create corporate culture, work to scale that, and really help organizations nurture and care for their people, which I firmly believe drives business results. Uh, Sounds fluffy, but it's not. It's hard work, and but it's super fun.
The organizations that understand that people are not just a line item on a P&L, but
Mhm.
they matter and how they matter will have a thriving P&L. And they don't have to worry about the P&L because it's going to take care of itself. It's interesting. And you have kind of coined this phrase that I absolutely love. Culture is a perk. And I want to dig into that because it kind of goes with what we're talking about here
Mhm.
because it's all about people. And I think you know that and live that and breathe that. So
Mhm.
talk to me about where culture is a perk, where that came from, and why you feel the way.
I think that it gets lost. I think that when I come into organizations and they say, "Well, we want to understand how to develop our corporate culture," I say, "Well, you have a corporate culture. It's existing right now." So I think it's more important to understand what it currently is, and then we can aspirationally move strategically towards what you would like to see it be. But I think that there's this idea that it's some far away thing that companies just develop this like wonderful culture with no intentionality behind it. And that's just not the case. Culture takes a lot of work, intention, money. There is an investment that you have to make in your people, and that investment goes up as you grow and scale. And so it's a long-term investment. And I think that, you know, especially now, people are looking for more than just coming to work, doing a job, going home, or in many cases, coming to work, doing the work of two and three people, and then going home. It's, a real benefit to your employees to love what they're doing and to love the environment that they're doing it in. Now, I think that there are some expectation challenges that happen sometimes where people think that they should love every single bit about work. And as my parents used to say, that's why it's called work and not play, right? Like there's a real, like, sometimes you have to do stuff you don't like, but the reality is that you should like the people that you're doing it with, and you should feel that the company has your best interest at heart along with the business objectives at heart. So it can be true. Both things can be true. It's
Yeah,
not one or the
that's
other.
value alignment, where
Right.
I mean, where your personal values are in alignment with the work that you're doing. You
Yeah,
don't come home feeling like icky.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
No, I love that, and I love how you phrase some of these things. I'm curious. This wasn't even in my like. Oh, I'm going to ask a question, but I'm curious. What are the things that you think that people, as they start to scale, what are the things that they should be investing in? Like, I'm a leader of a company. I've got 25 people. Now we're growing to 50 people. What
Mhm.
do I need to be investing?
You know, it's a great question. And I think it's different depending on the business, depending on the industry. Like there's so
Good point.
many factors, right? But I think the best place to start is having somebody that can identify a people strategy. It doesn't have to be somebody that's super senior. It could be somebody that is an HR generalist, a coordinator, even if you're very small, but somebody that really looks at the people that you have now, the growth projections. Where is it going to be in another year, 2 years, 3 years? And I feel very strongly that you should plan. If you're a company that's growing, you should plan for 2 times whatever it is that you're anticipating, because you'll get there faster than you think. And if you have systems and processes and people strategy that's incredibly outdated, it's very hard to play catch up. And then you're fixing a story as opposed to creating a story. And I think that creating the story, creating the strategy, and really intentionally focusing on it is the most important thing. So if you're a CEO of a 10-person company and you plan on doubling in size, do I think you have to hire a HR consultant for that? Probably not, especially if you really care about the culture and that's something that you're going to take on. But there is a point in time where you need to recognize that that shouldn't be your job anymore. You need to pull back and focus on the business growth, and you need to hire somebody that's an expert in the people side of the business to ensure that those things stay aligned. As you start to separate from the business and elevate, things start to fracture with the people side. Relationships change, expectations change, reporting cadence changes.
Yeah.
So just being aware of that is really, really critical. It's different for everybody. Some people wait until they have 200 people before they say, "Oh, I really need HR support." That's a different kind of project than somebody that says, I'm going to scale, by 10 people this year.
Yeah. No, I think when you're doing it smart and it's 5, it's 10, whatever, I think you can do a lot of that stuff on the inside if you've got the right people.
Yeah.
But I absolutely agree with you, and I love that you say it, that at some point, having fresh eyes from the outside that can come in because they're invested in helping you, and
Yes.
they're not married and haven't built what's around. So they're literally coming in from a level playing field to see
Mm-hmm.
everything. I think that is, very astute. That can be impactful to the company and make a huge difference. It really bugs me when we have so many layoffs and the leaders aren't taking onus because it's somewhere you made a choice. The people at the top made a choice. You turned left, you should have turned right, or you didn't. You didn't look way ahead,
Mm-hmm.
and now your competition has just surpassed you and left you in the dust, and you've lost market share. You and the top people making decisions, a lot of times you made the wrong. So
Yeah.
seeing that ahead of time, not being knee jerk reactionary, but planning, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to really do the best you can by your people, incorporating them in to
It's
decision
so
making.
true. It's
Um,
so true. And not
right?
everything is predictable. Like you can't
No,
always predict things, but I think that having a predictability component to what you're doing and what your strategy is also a good standard to set. So when you do face unpredictable times or you do face something where you've made a bad decision, or if you have that transparency and honesty, you can tell people, listen, we made the wrong call here and this is the result. And people have a lot more respect when you have some semblance of transparency, even if they don't know everything, and they shouldn't know everything. But I think just setting that up by being more proactive as opposed to like firefighting tends to be a better way to move the business forward from a people perspective.
yeah, firefighting to me is that same knee jerk reaction. It's like, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm constantly putting on fire.
Oh,
Well, then you need to look at that and take a step back because something's
mhm.
happening along the way.
Yep.
I, I'm thinking right now, like, and this is because I'm, a culinary nerd. I'm thinking right now of all the backlash, all the junk going on around Cracker Barrel. So
Mm.
here's this organization that has built this strong, you know, this is our brand, this is who
Mhm.
we are, this is what we do. They have, if you've ever been into a Cracker
Yeah.
Barrel, and they have the stars on there. These people have earned these
Yeah.
from being here and how much time they have and the place. There is so much to it, and their level of service is so much higher. Like
Mhm.
even on a bad day,
Yeah.
on a bad service day for them is much better than a lot of service
It's
places.
true. Hmm.
And yet now with some of the backlash of trying to change their logos and what their branding and all of that, it you see that and you see the things happening and you just go, where did this go off? Where
Yeah.
where where in the world would you think that this would be an okay kind of thing?
Well, it's again, it goes back to that. I always like people to think about what is the anticipated result, and then what are the non-anticipated results? What happens if something goes completely sideways, and how are you going to account for that when you're making a decision? And in my mind, I look at that as being, I hate to point fingers at anybody for anything, but there is a component of did we talk about this before we did it? Did we really account for every way this could go? And did we have a plan in place if it went really sideways? Maybe that was done. I don't know. But I think that type of decision making is so important for businesses, especially now because there's so much instability in general. There's a lot of fear and a lot of instability. And so when a decision is made and a change happens, change is doesn't work well for people. Even if it's good change,
Yeah,
positive change is stressful. So you add, not that I think that like changing a logo is necessarily stressful, but people don't respond well to things happening that they're, you know, on the outside of, that they don't know the reasons why, they don't understand, you know. So I think that there's a good lesson to be learned in doing your research, making sure that you're accounting for all possible outcomes. And the cleanup afterwards becomes such a distraction. And that's the thing that I think a lot of leaders miss, is that people think that by communicating change, that is the distraction. And that's not the distraction. The distraction is when you have all of the talk, all of the gossip, all of the backlash when you don't communicate.
Right. Where everybody's like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, or what's going on, or
Yeah,
what
what
are
is
they
happening?
teaching
What are
us?
we doing?
Right,
What are we
right,
doing? What are they thinking?
right.
All of the water cooler moments.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, it is powerful. And I'm such a fan of inviting people in the organization to give feedback and doing beyond market research. You can
Mhm.
ask the people that are following you and stuff, but ask the people that are really dedicated, that are doing the work as well. I mean, that's probably to me is just as important
Yeah,
as your customer base, because everybody is involved with that. They are your You've got your people here that are creating what goes to your customers, and then your customer base is giving you feedback, hopefully.
that's right.
And well, they are, whether you know it or not. Either they're not shopping anymore, or they are
Yeah.
increasing. So even if you're not asking, they're giving you feedback. But I love that.
But
Powerful.
you're right. The you know, I would argue that the internal customers, your employees, your internal customers, really should be at the forefront of a change, because they're the ones that face a lot of the backlash from the external customers. So if you are not taking care of and communicating effectively across your front line of the business, your customer is being impacted. And if you think you're controlling the message as one person in an organization, you're wrong. Every employee controls the message of your organization. So if for the most part your employees are on board with the direction that the organization is going, or at least have some type of reasoning, you have a whole army of employees that are your front line. They're the face of your brand. And so having them on the same page and having them a little bit in the know, and giving them information is a benefit to the business, but it also empowers them.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I, I actually love the model of where employees are owners. I love that business model where the
Yeah.
employers are part owners. I
Yeah.
think it just sets a precedent. But okay, so if you had your way, you could wave a magic wand right now. What would be one thing that you would immediately change in leadership mindset?
Oh, that's an easy one. The perception of HR as a value add to a business. There's no question. You see it since COVID, especially since COVID, before COVID, but especially since COVID. HR is the heartbeat of most organizations. They are the voice of reason. They are the, enforcer of the rules. They are the keys to the strategic decisions related to people. They are your core. And to not have them sitting at your table, maybe telling you things you don't want to hear, but listening anyway, and not viewing them as strategic is really, I think, the biggest challenge for organizations today, because the people in organizations today are very noisy. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in the economy. There's a lot going on in organizations, and people have a lot to say. And if your HR team is the one that's absorbing all of that, and they have nowhere to put it, they're not being heard from a people strategy perspective, that's really problematic in organizations at every level.
Agreed. I'm curious whether you think that now, I have an opinion on this, but I'm curious whether you think now more than ever we need to be really doing a lot more one-on-ones and asking the questions of our people like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What beyond just the work, like the outside part of it.
Yeah.
What's going on in your life? Getting to know them as human.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what you think because there's people on both sides that are like, work is work. We need to keep this straight line. And I
Hmm.
think with everything that we see in the world right now, I think even more so from a wellness standpoint,
Yeah.
we've got to be asking the questions. So I'm just curious.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there's ever a reason why you wouldn't want to lean into your employees and know about their whole selves. I mean, people bring their whole self to work. If you're expecting your employees to pick up the phone after, if it's a 9 to 5 job, pick up the phone at 6 o'clock if there's an emergency, then I think you owe that to them to also know a little bit about them as a human, right? I think, again, a bit industry specific. If you're on a factory line and you're making widgets and you are very much, you come in, you're very task oriented, you're doing a job, you're a cog in a wheel, which is perfectly acceptable. So many people in jobs like that that we need. Does it matter as much? Do people care as much about having a boss that says, tell me how you're feeling today? I don't know. Maybe they do. But certainly for other industries where you have a service driven population that is client facing, I think it is more critical than ever. The other thing too, and whether this is right or wrong, I mean, social media. If you're not treating your employees well, if you don't care about what they're doing, if you're not, and even in a assembly line type of situation, there's different concerns, right? There's safety concerns and making sure
Yeah,
you're caring for your employees in that kind of way, which is different than the customer facing type roles. But if you don't go that extra mile, it takes one bad review, it takes one bad post, and your reputation is on the line. So it's not only just about caring about the person, it should be, right? It should just
yeah,
be like as humans, we care about one another. But from a business perspective, if you discount the importance of your employees, you're also potentially coming up against a PR nightmare that you're not going to be able to unravel once it comes out that you're treating your employees poorly. So I do think I think, and that's a lot of the training that I do now is this middle management. How do I communicate with my employees? How do I do one-on-ones with my employees? How do I talk to them about what they're doing outside of work and how they're feeling while also knowing that they have to meet certain expectations? Like it's not just a, relationship driven, it's also production and performance based conversations. But I would argue if you know what your employee is going through personally, that's going to impact their performance if they're having a hard time. So understanding those ebbs and flows allows you to really pour in when you need to as a leader and flex a little bit if they're having a great day and they can kind of do their own thing. So I think it helps with the coaching relationship.
yeah, I love that. And I agree with you. I'm a big fan. We're seeing this now more and more, where even from an addiction standpoint, that companies are starting to put programs in place, especially in fields where they're seeing more of that,
Yep.
where they actually are, hey, we're not going to judge you, but we also got to make sure that everybody's taken care of and that we're
Hmm.
protecting everyone.
Yeah.
So we're going to get you the help you need, and we're going to talk about it.
Hmm.
And so I think that there's a lot of room for us to work on the human level and
There is.
make it a place that works for everybody, but everybody feels seen, heard, and valued,
A
which is
hundred
what
percent.
everybody wants.
And I would say that starts with, and it's a hard thing to coach to, but it starts with leadership vulnerability. Leaders being willing to say, like, I'm having a rough day. Like, I'm going to need some time in my office. And just an FYI, it's not anybody here. It's just I'm having a tough day, or I'm feeling a certain way about something, or hey, listen, this decision is coming, and it might not be the most popular, but we have to do it for X number of reasons. Like, just that transparency is important.
Uh, Perfect, absolutely perfect. You're right on. Tell people we're at the end of the show. Tell people how they can get in touch with you and the ways that they can work with you. Tell
Yeah.
them both. And we're going to have all of your links when this goes out. But I would love for you just to
Yeah, thank you. So I work two different sides to the business. One is the client side. So working with organizations that are having a lot of the challenges and struggles that we spoke about today. So building and scaling HR teams, culture, building, leadership development training. And then on the individual side, I work almost entirely with folks in transition. So new grads, veterans, I work with former athletes to really help them and empower them to really redefine themselves and start off in this like new world of job searching. So LinkedIn, I have a website. I'll give you the links, but I'm always happy to talk to anybody.
fantastic. Well, we have enjoyed having you in the house today. Give it up one more time. And listen, we will have all of these links out, and I cannot wait to go on Funky Friday and shout out about what you're doing. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for the great work that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Well, and it's very mutual.
We will catch you next time. Thanks for being here. I'm Jason Forehand on Time to Change.